What is up, Dodgers Nation? Welcome to another episode of Dodgers Nation Mailbag, where we answer your questions from over on X, over on YouTube. And if you want to be a part of next week's episode, look for that tweet when we send it out. You guys can drop your questions down below. Also, look for that over on YouTube. And on top of that, if you want to submit a video question, we encourage that. Record a video of you asking us a question, and we will answer it and feature it on this show. On today's episode, who will be the Dodgers postseason rotation? Will the Dodgers pick up Max Muncy's option? Will he be back with LA? Is Dave Roberts the manager of the year in the National League? Have the Dodgers exceeded expectations? All that and more, that's coming up on Dodgers Nation Mailbag. And welcome to another episode of Dodgers Nation Mailbag. Let's get right into it. Today, I'm joined with producer Spencer. He's rocking with me today. Spencer, what's the first question we got?
Who will be the Dodgers postseason rotation?
Who will be the Dodgers postseason rotation? So right now, they're in a pretty good spot. When you consider that Clayton Kershaw has returned, he looks healthy. You saw that split change. You saw him looking like the guy he looked like before he went on the IL. I think there's a really decent chance that Clayton Kershaw goes in game one, or it's going to be Julio Urias. So between Julio and Clayton Kershaw, I think you consider the fact that Julio, if you go with him in game one, maybe he comes back later in this series. If you want to go on short rest, maybe you go that route. I do think when you consider last season, there was no doubt about that. Julio Urias, he had earned that job as the Dodgers opening game NLDS starter. He was their opening day starter this year. But if you look at how they performed this season, Clayton Kershaw has been the better pitcher. But of late, Julio's performed well. You saw his last start. He was fantastic. You're seeing the fastball command is much better. The changeup command is much better. He's looking like a different guy out there on the mound. And I think a lot of his issues were health related, right? I mean, the hamstring was giving him trouble. It was sending his mechanics out of sync. But now you're starting to see Julio Urias look like the Urias once again. So I'm fine with either of those guys going in game one. And I think game two is the interesting one. Game two is the conversation because we know you have Bobby Miller. And Bobby Miller is a rookie. Bobby Miller was thrusted into this situation, but he's been fantastic. Yesterday, he goes 6 innings, allows just 1 hit, 1 earned run, had 4 strikeouts, 1 walk. He retired 18 in a row to close the game. And over his last 6 starts, he has a 2.59 ERA. So if you remove his start against the Giants, against the Astros, he's been phenomenal. He's had his ups and downs, but for the most part, he has looked like a guy that you can trust. And he absolutely looks like he's one of the Dodgers' best 4 starting pitchers. To me, he's got that main character energy. He has that future frontline starter feel. The only question is, do you play him? Do you start him in game 2, or do you hold out and say, maybe we go in game 4, maybe we go in game 3? I think for me, if you trust him to pitch in the postseason, it shouldn't matter whether it's at home or on the road. And if I'm the Dodgers, I'm telling myself, how do we go up 2-0 in this series? You saw last year when Kershaw was on the mound, he gave up 3 runs. Dodgers offense, they didn't do much in that game. Trey Turner had that key error. Blake trying to give up the home run, but they lost game 2 to the Padres. They would end up losing that series. You don't want to have the same thing happen. I think you put your 2 best starting pitchers to start the series. I think you go Kershaw in game 1, Julio in game 2. Game 3, I'm going Linsanity. The way that Lance Lynn has pitched, to me, he's the guy when you consider his control, when you consider how much he's turned it around. And also, he's a wily vet, right? He's someone that you can trust in that spot on the road. He's been there. He's been in big spots. If you look at Lance Lynn, a 2 ERA in 3 starts with the Dodgers. Dodgers have gone 3-0 since you put on Dodger Blue. I think he's in a great place mentally. I think he's loving being a part of this organization. The White Sox were definitely toxic, and he's really turned his season around. The biggest keys for him are, 1, keep the ball in the yard. The home run ball has been an issue. We understand that, but if you limit base runners, you can live with solo shots, right? He's allowed 31 home runs on the year. His last start did not serve up a dinger, so that is definitely encouraging when it comes to Lance Lynn. So he's my game 3 starter. And then for game 4, I think I'm going Bobby Miller. Bobby Miller is someone that if you start in game 4, if it gets to that, who knows, maybe the Dodgers sweep, right? But if it gets to Bobby Miller and you give him the ball in game 4, you could always look at a piggyback start. Everyone's talking about a potential piggyback start with Walker Buehler and Ryan Yarbrough. You could do the same thing with Bobby Miller. If he gets into trouble, you can calculate a bullpen game. You could play the matchup. So there is a world where you know what you're going to get with Lance Lynn. He's probably going to go 6 or 7 innings, give you 100 plus pitches. Bobby Miller, if things go south, you do have the depth behind him to say, okay, it's not all on Miller in that situation. Then that's what my 4. I'm going Kershaw in game 1, Julio in game 2, Lance Lynn in game 3, and then Bobby Miller with the possibility of having a split start, a piggyback situation. And then look, the reality in all this is if Walker Buehler can come back, we're talking about one of the very best postseason starting pitchers over the last decade. That changes everything. If he thinks that he could start, you could put him in a piggyback situation. You have to strongly consider that. But I just don't like this idea of, okay, Bobby Miller, he can only start at home. That's not the confidence that I want to inspire in my young gun, right? I want to say, hey, we trust you on the road. We trust you at home. Look at his start against the Braves. He was lights out. I think when the lights get bright, Bobby's going to be big time. He doesn't like the nickname Bob Yice. How about big game Bob, right? That's what we need from him in the postseason. But Spencer, keep on my next question, my man.
Will the Dodgers pick up Muncy's 2024 option?
Will the Dodgers pick up Max Muncy's option? I would say 100% with the bullet. He will be back in Dodger blue. There's no question about it. Max Muncy, he has had a bounce back season. I know a lot of the casuals like to point out his 198 batting average. It's only up 2 points from last season, but don't focus on the batting average with Max Muncy because he does other things. He gets on base. That is what he does. And if you look at his weighted runs created plus, which is a great way to evaluate overall offensive production, he's sitting at a 120 weighted runs created plus. That is 20% above league average. That's up from 106 last season. Also, look at the power numbers. This year, Max Muncy, 28 dingers for Max Muncy, up from 21 last season. This is a guy that's going to hit over 30 home runs for the 4th time in his Dodger career. And since he started with the Dodgers in 2018, no one has left the yard more frequently than Max Muncy. In 2018, he hit 35 bombs. 2019, 35 bombs. The shortened season in 2020 hit 12 bombs. 2021, 36 bombs. Last year, coming off the injury with the UCL, he had 21 bombs. He did not look like Max Muncy. The isolated power numbers are up from 188 last year to 278 this year. Defensively, yes, he grades out as one of the worst third basemen in the sport, but I also think he's miscast. I think he should be at first base ideally. There's another guy there by the name of Freddie Freeman, so that's not happening. And then second base is occupied as well. So I think long term, you absolutely bring back Max Muncy, and you have to consider that if you don't like him and you pick up someone else, he's someone you could get someone for. There's be teams lined up around the block to trade for Max Muncy because you're talking about a club option that the base salary is $10 million, but he's already added $250,000 for both 50 and 250 plate appearances this year. He adds another $250,000 for each of 300 and 350 plate appearances, $500,000 each of 400 and 450 plate appearances, and $1 million for each of 500 and 550 plate appearances. So at the option, you're talking about at the very most $14 million with no buyout. You look at his plate appearances right now, he's at 408. So he absolutely can achieve that highest level right there. And look, the grass isn't always greener. Max Muncy is, for some reason, one of the most disrespected Dodgers players. I don't get it because this is someone you can count on for 30 home runs a year when he's healthy. A guy that's always dangerous at the plate. He has had himself a bounce back season. He's performed well. He's a guy that has had big moments in the postseason. Let's not forget, this is someone who had a game-winning hit in the World Series, in the longest World Series game of all time, over 7 hours. So we know that Max Muncy is going to be there when it counts, and they're 100% going to pick up that club option. As far as his role goes, I think the third base position is something you need to look at because defensively, his numbers continue to decline. The DH spot, JD Martinez most likely will be gone. He's on a 1-year, $10 million deal. I think he's done enough to prove to teams that he's worth another 2, 3, 4-year contract, one more nice payday for his career. And then you look at Shohei Ohtani. That's the $1 million question, the potentially $500, $600 million question, because if you got Shohei Ohtani on your roster, you know that he's going to be occupying that DH spot. So I definitely think Max Muncy is going to be back. I think it's going to be an affordable contract and a really great contract that provides a lot of value for this team. But Spencer, give me my next question, my man.
Will Dave Roberts win Manager of the Year?
Will Dave Roberts win Manager of the Year? Well, not if you read the comments in my post-game show, right, where it's hashtag fire Dave Roberts. I always say that people would blame Dave Roberts for the sinking of the Titanic, right? Well, the good thing about Dave Roberts is he goes down with the ship. He takes accountability. If anything goes wrong, he's someone that understands his role. And is his role to make every single decision? No, it's a collaborative effort. The Dodgers have one of the biggest analytics departments in Major League Baseball. It's collaborative. You discuss things with Friedman, with everyone involved, with the coaches, and you make the best decision. But I think when you consider the expectations for this Dodgers team, and yes, it's still one of the highest payrolls in the sport. We understand that, north of $230 million. So it's tough to see the Dodgers as these underdogs, the little engine that could Dodgers. No, that's not the case. But this is a division that was supposed to be won by the San Diego Padres. I got news for you. The Padres are closer to the Rockies in last place than the Dodgers in first place. And I think you got to give Dave Roberts a lot of credit for that, because on top of everything else, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows, right? There's been a ton of injuries. You lose your starter in Clayton Kershaw, your best starting pitcher for a long time, for almost 2 months. And then Julio Urias, he wasn't pitching like an opening day starter dealing with an injury. Then you consider the injuries to the bullpen. You consider the overall talent level of bringing in young players, a James Outman, who's a rookie center fielder. And then how about this? Getting these veterans back on track. You mean to tell me that any manager out there could have gotten the most from a Jason Hayward, from a David Peralta, the return of Kike Hernandez? One thing that I've seen with my own eyes is Dave Roberts gives his players confidence more than anyone that I've ever seen in any sport. He gets these guys to believe. I mean, he is confident in you until the very end, and I think that is what is his best trait. I truly do believe that. And I think, too, people don't like to give Dave Roberts credit because, one, they think that anyone can do this because the roster that they have assembled, right? He has got the keys to a Bentley, but he's got to know how to drive it. Just because you have an ensemble cast doesn't mean it's going to be a great movie. Just ask The Expendables, right? I mean, you had Stallone, Statham, you had that dream cast. It wasn't a good movie. You need the Ocean's 11, right? He's got Ocean's 11, but he's Soderbergh, right? He knows how to direct Brad Pitt and George Clooney, right? He knows what to do with these stars. And I think an underrated aspect of his skill set is he can delegate. He doesn't feel the need to suck all the oxygen out of the room. He can say, okay, this is Kershaw's clubhouse. He's the god. He's King Kersh. We're all devout Christians. We understand that, big believer in Christianity. But also below that, I think with the departure of Justin Turner, you have Jason Hayward. You have a Freddie Freeman. You have a JD Martinez and a Mookie Betts. You have a core of veterans, Miguel Rojas, Peralta. All these guys are established veterans. A lot of them are all-stars. A lot of them are future Hall of Famers. And he has a nucleus in place where he doesn't try to mess with that. I think it's a perfect ecosystem for what he brings and empowering his guys to be those leaders. And I absolutely do believe that he's helped the young players, Bobby Miller, Emmett Sheehan, Michael Grove, all these young guys just nurturing this next wave of Dodgers players, giving them confidence to go out there and perform it. Look, with Dave Roberts, he just takes whatever players are available and he says, okay, we're going to try to win a ball game today. He says that a lot, and I think he truly believes that. And I think that, yeah, not every manager is going to make the right decision. A lot of these decisions, they're coin flips. A lot of these decisions are decisions where, yeah, sometimes it goes right and you don't hear anything about it, but then when they go wrong, he's the guy to blame, right? And look, Dave Roberts doesn't go up there and swing the bat with runners in scoring position. He doesn't miss pitches out over the plate like some of our bullpen pieces were when it was one of the worst bullpens in the sport and the starting rotation wasn't going deep in the game. So what he has to do is, like I always say, he's the David Goggins of Major League Baseball. Just continue to keep the spirits up, the confidence up. And like I said, I think he rides the roller coaster, even keel wave of a Major League season better than any manager. And I will say this, that if Dave Roberts wins the World Series this year, just look at those accomplishments. He should have won in 2017. That was stolen by the Astros. 2018, he takes that team that had a terrible start to the World Series. They lose to a Red Sox team that was cheating in the regular season. That's why they had such a beefed up record. I mean, what if that's an even playing field and the Dodgers had home field advantage in that series? And then you look at 2020, you win the World Series that year, you get your chip. 2021, I think there were some bad decisions. I don't agree with him Going with Julio Urias in that spot. I mean, there were some moves you could point to. And in 2022, decimated by just a hitting group that went 5 for 34 with runners in scoring position. So he hasn't been the perfect manager, but I guess what? No manager is. But you're talking about a guy that's on a Hall of Fame trajectory if he wins another World Series trophy. And I think that he's going to be missed one day. I find that hard to believe, but Dave Roberts is going to be missed one day whenever he hangs him up. But Spencer, what else you got from him, man?
Have the Dodgers exceeded expectations this year?
Perfect follow-up. Absolutely, the Dodgers have exceeded expectations. If you guys watch this show, you know that my preseason record prediction for the Dodgers was 97-65. And when I made that prediction, people on Twitter, people on this show, they're like, "You're crazy. You're being the white pill. You're a homer. This Dodgers team is this. They don't have that. It's a transition year." Transition year, my ass. This is a Dodgers team and organization that has the formula to win in the regular season. They do that. And when you're a team like the Dodgers, you have the depth that they have at the margins, you have the analytics department, you have all their resources. That's why you see them consistently winning each and every year. That's why they're about to win their 10th division title in the last 11 years, and they're continuing that success. So have they exceeded expectations? In my eyes, I would say no, because right now they're on pace to win 98 games. So that's one more game than I expected them to win. So yeah, a little bit. But when you consider the injuries, the bullpen, the lack of production from the starting rotation, I think they have exceeded expectations if you look at the preseason predictions from a lot of the experts, because it feels like 95% of them all said the San Diego Padres. You remember before the season started and the Padres had their little Padres Fest, whatever they call that, when they're not throwing parades after wild card wins. They had that thing where they had the stage set up and you had Tatis and Machado and Soto, and they were saying how great of a year was going to be, and they didn't care who they were going to face in the World Series because they were going to win anyway. Well, guess what? You're going to be on the couch during the entire postseason. I hope that you can celebrate that NLDS win you had last year, because that is all you have. I always say their trophy case room, that trophy case is emptier than the toilet paper aisles at the beginning of COVID. It is empty. There's nothing there. So when you compare the Dodgers to the Padres, who are the worst underperforming, most disappointing team in recent memory, yeah, they have exceeded expectations. So I would say that a lot of these guys, too, if you want to get a little more specific individually, Jason Hayward has outperformed anything you could have expected. David Peralta got a $6.5 million deal. Clutch base hits. Miguel Rojas, defensively, he wasn't expected to be an everyday player. He fills in for Gavin Lux. He's done a terrific job. He's been remarkable filling in for G. Lux with the injury. And you look at the rookies. James Outman, he is an above-average player. There was a former 7th-round pick that's playing above-average defense, above-average offense, has the highest OPS in the National League since the All-Star break. So, yeah, there's a lot of things you can point to that there's a lot of overachievers on this team, despite having two of the best players on the planet, the best 1-2 punch in baseball history, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, the best duo in LA since Kobe and Shaq. So you have that foundation, but a lot of guys that have emerged this year. So I would say, Spencer, they have 100% exceeded expectations. But that's going to do it for this episode of Dodgers Nation Mailbag. You can follow me on Instagram and the artist formerly known as Twitter, X, at DMAC_LA. And we encourage you to be a part of next week's episode. Look for that X and reply to it with your question. We will answer it on this show. Also, the video submissions as well will include that. And also look for us over on YouTube. Thanks so much to producer Spencer, Cody, rocking with us as always. And until next time, think blue, bleed blue, and I'm out.